Hello gang, it's Spirit Island time. Spirit Island is a cooperative board game for 1 to 4 players. Players are going to be playing the roles of spirits on an island, hence the name. The objective of this game is to help the native Dahan to ward off these pesky invaders from their island before they do too much damage to the island. You're going to be doing that by placing presents on the board and by playing cards that can destroy the invaders. That's a very brief overview, but in this video I'm of course going to be going through the rules in much more detail. So strap in and let's start by setting up. Spirit Island comes with 4 different island boards, appropriately named A, B, C and D. The number of island boards that you're going to be playing with is equal to the number of players that are playing the game. It doesn't matter which ones you choose if you're not being 4-player, they all fulfill the same effect. It's just a slightly different layout. If you're playing 2-player, set up the boards like this. If you're playing 3-player, set up the boards like this. And if you're playing 4-player, set up the board like this. But by the way, when I say set it up like this, I don't necessarily mean in this order with A here, B here, C here, D there. You can basically switch them around however you like. And that adds a little bit more variability to the game. The important bit is you see these blue bits with the symbol of the ship in them. They are the coastline, so they have to be on the edges of the board. Each board contains 8 different terrains, 2 of 4 different types. There is also the ocean that I've already mentioned. But there'll be 2 terrains that represent mountains, these are the grey ones, 2 that are jungles, 2 that are sands, and 2 that are wetlands. Also on each board, the 3 territories that are next to the ocean are considered coastal lands. The rest are considered inland. That's very important on a few of the cards. When they refer to coastal lands, they're referring to these 3. Even though it's an island and you might think, well, this is a coast because it's the edge of the island, it's not. It's these 3 that are coastal. When you've chosen your board or boards, set them up by looking at the symbols in the corners of the terrains. In this case, this territory should be set up with 2 Dahan. This one should have 1 Dahan and 1 city. And this one here should have a blight token. Do that for the whole of the board. Next, you're going to need to prepare the invader board. Prepare 4 of these fear tokens for each player playing. So if you're playing 2-player, you need 8. If you're playing 1-player, you need 4. Also, prepare 5 of these blight tokens over here for each player playing. Again, if you're playing 2-player, you need 10. I'm setting this up for a 1-player game. When you're more experienced in the game, you could place a blight card over here that makes the game a little bit more difficult. But for the rest of this video, I'm going to be assuming that whoever is watching a how to play video isn't that experienced within the game. Then you're going to need to prepare the fear deck. So take the deck of fear cards that look like this, shuffle them, place 3 cards up here, and then place the terror level 3 marker on top of that. Take another 3 cards, place them on top, take the terror level 2 marker, place it there, and then another 3 fear cards on top of that. The remaining fear cards go back in the box. And next you're going to need to prepare the deck of invader cards. You'll notice that they're marked with numbers 1, 2 and 3. Shuffle each of these piles individually, then take one of the cards with 3, one of the cards with 2, one of the cards with 1 and place them back in the box. Then put the 1s on top of the 2s, put that on top of there, and then place them in the explore square down here. Next, you're going to need to decide which spirit you're going to be playing as. In this case, I'm going to be playing as River Surges in Sunlight, which is one of the low complexity spirits, which is great for beginners. Then you're going to need to take your starting hand of cards. The starting cards for River are the ones where the artwork on the back of the card matches the artwork on this board. And it's the same, of course, for all spirits. So look for the ones where the art matches the art. On the back of this board, there's an additional line talking about setup, and it says to place 1 of my presence tokens on the starting board in the highest numbered wetlands, which in this case, this is number 2, this is number 5, so I would be placing a starting presence here. The remaining of these tokens get placed on my spirit board like this. And then we are very nearly set up and ready to play. You're going to need to prepare the minor power deck and the major power deck. Usually you would do this simply by shuffling them, but for beginner players, the game does come with what's known as power progression cards. Basically, these minor power decks and these major power decks contain cards that are better than your starting hand, and you can use them more efficiently around the island to achieve your objectives. The power progression is designed to make life a little bit easier for you, and it basically suggests, okay, make a little pile of these 7 cards if you're playing as this spirit, and then whenever you choose to pick up a new card, you pick the one that's next in the order. You can do that or not do that, it's entirely up to you. And then as the final stage of setup, and I promise this is the end, you take the top card from the Explorer deck. In this case, it has a blue W on it for wetlands, and that means that the invaders start exploring in the wetland area. So place some of these guys over here. Now, before going on to talk about the actual gameplay, it makes sense to talk about some of these cards, because on each card there's quite a lot of information and quite a lot of things going on. Obviously, the text that's down here is the main effect of that card, so this one would allow me to push some invaders and push some towns. But there are other things happening here as well. So you'll notice that some have got this little red symbol of a bird, and some have this blue symbol of a tortoise. Those basically denote when you can play these cards. The red birds are played in the fast power phase, and these ones are played in the slow power phase. That will make a bit more sense when I go through the gameplay, but just bear in mind that's what denotes that. The numbers in the top corner are how much energy you have to spend to play the card. Again, we'll get into how you get energy and things like that. But then also, each card, apart from the effect, it can only be used at a certain range. So this one can be used at any range. This one can be used at a range of 1, and that basically means 1 territory away from your presence. Same with this one here, and this one has a range of 0, so you need to have presence on a certain territory to be able to use this card. Also, there's the target. In this case, all of them can be used on any territory. This one's actually on any spirit. But the thing is, there are some other cards, just take some from the deck, where this one can only be used on lands that have Dahan. This one can only be used on lands that are mountains or jungle areas. Also on these cards are these elements, but you know what, I'll go through those later. I'd also like to talk a little bit more about the Explorers. They come in these 3 different shapes and sizes. There are the Explorers, the Towns, and the Cities. Basically, these have different healths of 3, 2, and 1. And equally, when they're attacking the ground or attacking the Dahan, they do 3 damage, 2 damage, and 1 damage. One important thing to note is when these take damage, if one of these, like I said, it has a health of 2, but if you only do 1 damage to it, it does not turn into an Explorer. Instead, you simply flip it over onto its side. Are you still with me so far? Good, I'll take that as a yes. When we move on to the gameplay, there's something that's very important to understand, and that's that Spirit Island isn't typically played in turns. The way you'll normally play most other board games is I'll do my turn, they'll do their turn, they'll do their turn, and then we're back to me. The way this works is it works in different phases, and everybody does those phases simultaneously. So we start with, for example, the Spirit Growth phase. Everybody does the Spirit Growth phase at the same time, but nobody moves on to the next phase until everybody is done with the Spirit Growth phase. That's a little bit different from most board games that you might be familiar with. So what is the Spirit Growth phase? Well, it's where and when the spirits grow. There you go, clear as mud. On the top of your spirit board, you have some of these symbols. they are divided into three little groups. So these two are together, these two are together, these three are together. Basically, you're going to pick this pair, or this trio. I'll go through a little bit what the symbols mean. So this one here means that you get to add a presence either from here or from here, and you get to place it on your board, in this case at a range of 2 from where you already have a presence. So let's say I want to place this one somewhere else on my board that's 1 or 2 squares away from this one. 1 or 2 terrains away, I should say, not squares. This one, gain power card, that simply means take a power card, either from the minor power deck or the major power deck, or if you are playing with the power progression card, then in this case I would be taking Uncanny Melting, which is a minor power. That's one option. The other option is to pick this one here, where, let's just pop that one back, instead of placing one presence at a distance of maximum 2, I'd be placing 2 different presents at a distance of 1 each. And what's good to know here is they could both be 1 away from the presents that I already have, or I can sort of snake them like that and do 1 away from that and then 1 away from this. The third growth option, this here means that I would quite simply gain an energy token, which I can use for spending cards. This again is to gain a power card, same as we had over here. And finally, there's the reclaim cards. Basically, every time I play a card, it's going to end up in my own personal discard pile. This means that I can reclaim the entire discard pile and pick them all back up in my hand. This is something, by the way, that a lot of players get wrong when they're first playing the game. They think reclaim cards means they can only reclaim 1. They can't. That means they can reclaim absolutely everything. So pick one of those 3 and then perform the actions. The spirit growth options are slightly different for the different spirits, but the principles are still the same. Next up, still in the spirit phase, is we're going to gain some energy. I'll just talk to you a little bit about these 2 tracks here, we call them. One is the energy track, one is the card plays track. Basically, in this case, the number furthest to the right on this track that has been revealed is a 2. That means that at this stage of the game, I would gain 2 energy. This track here means that this round I can play 2 cards. When I was placing my presents, by the way, you'll notice that I picked 1 from each. You don't have to do that. You could, instead of picking from there, pick another one from here. And you can basically pick them however you like. You can also save your energy from round to round if you don't spend all of it in one go. And the last part of the spirit phase is to choose and pay for powers, basically to decide which cards I'm going to play. In this case, I've got 2 energy here. You could have some energy preserved from last time as well. It's not just the energy that you get each turn. And I'm allowed to play up to 2 cards. In this case, let's say I've looked at the board and I want to play Flash Floods and I want to play Wash Away. Well, you'll notice here there's a problem that this takes 2 energy, this takes 1, and I don't have 3 energy. So what I'll do is, instead of playing Wash Away, I'll play River's Bounty. 2 plus 0 is 2. I'll take these 2 and put them back in the energy supply. And then when everybody's done with the spirit growth phase, which can take anything from 1 minute to however long you like, it can take a very long time, then we move on to the fast power phase. Basically, you look at the cards that you've decided to play, and then the ones that have the red bird symbol denoting that they're fast powers, like I went through earlier, these are the ones that you play now. In this case, I'd be playing Flash Floods. Do remember as well what I said earlier, that it isn't I play my turn, you play your turn, you play your turn. We can do this more or less simultaneously. It may even be the case as well that somebody else has a fast power that, pushes an invader closer to me, where I can do more damage with my fast power. So talk to your teammates, you are on the same team, and see how you can use your cards to the best effect. Next, it's the invader phase. That starts potentially with the Blighted Island effects. This, again, is only if you're actually playing with these cards, but that's not recommended for beginners, so I'll ignore that for now. After that, if you have unlocked a fear card, it would be here, and this would be the time to use it. I'll just explain this very briefly. Every time that you destroy a town, one of these guys goes into the big mouth. And every time you destroy a city, two of them go into there. There are also other cards that mean that one or two or even more of these can go into the big mouth. But basically, when all of these fear tokens are down here, then you have unlocked a fear card and it goes up like this. At this stage of the game, so right at the beginning of the invader phase, this is when the fear card would be flipped over. In this case, we're on terror level 1. So this effect that it's mentioning here, invaders do not build in lands with cities. This turn is when that would take effect. Then when this has been used, it gets moved down to the fear discard pile. Just tell you a little bit more about fear. Eventually, when we've used more and more of these cards, then this guy is revealed. We're then at terror level 2. And what changes then is the victory conditions. We begin with the victory condition of having to remove all of the invaders, all the explorers, all the towns, all the cities. When we're at terror level 2, we simply need to remove the towns and the cities. I say simply, it's absolutely not simple, but that is how we would win. When we use a few more of these fear cards, we're down to terror level 3, and then it's destroying the cities that we need to do to win. But actually, if you manage to create even more fear than that, and you manage to completely deplete the fear card deck, then you get an instant victory as soon as this guy here is revealed. That's a little brief overview of how the fear works. But yeah, at this stage of the gameplay, if there is a card there, this is the point where it gets revealed. And at that point, without further ado, it is time to Ravage. I've just moved a few things along a little bit so I can demonstrate this more clearly with an example. When it's time to Ravage, we look at which card is here. In this case, it is a wetland. This means that the invaders are going to ravage in the wetlands. Basically, Ravage means to attack something and to cause damage to it. And what they're going to do is they're going to cause damage to both the Dahan in the wetland and also to the land itself. The way they do that is, as I said previously, the cities do damage of 3, the explorers do damage of 1, and if there was a town in this land as well, it would do a damage of 2. They're simultaneously attacking both the Dahan and the land itself. So in this case, they're doing 3 plus 1, which is 4 damage. 4 damage to the Dahan. Each Dahan has 2 health points, so the 4 damage would be to kill 2 of the Dahan. May they rest in peace. By the way, I'll just say there briefly that when they attack the Dahan, they do so very efficiently. So you can't say, well, we'll kill 1 and then the other 2 take 1 damage. They attack them efficiently and these 2 are then dead. They're also doing 4 damage to the ground itself. And because at the moment I'm not defending it, there are a few cards where you're able to defend the land. But if they do 2 damage, at least 2 damage to the land itself, you take one of these blight tokens from the fear board and you place it there. Similarly, over here, this guy is trying to attack the land. He can only do so and do damage 1, which isn't enough for it to blight. He does attack this Dahan. This takes 1 damage, which we represent by putting it upside down. But then, surviving Dahan are going to attack back. And they're going to do 2 damage to the invaders. Each Dahan, whether injured or not, does 2 damage. So this guy has enough strength to kill this guy. Over here, he can kill 1, and then this takes some damage, so we represent that by putting it on its side. I'll just say as well, when we blighted the land, let's say that there was already a blight there, then what would happen now that we're adding a second blight is that the blight would cascade, which basically means that since this is double blighted, one of the surrounding areas would then receive blight as well, and it's up to the players to decide which land that would be. However, if the person decides that If the player decides that this is the land that's going to receive the extra blight, you'll notice that this land now has 2 as well, which means that that will cascade as well. And one final thing about blight, let's pretend that I had a presence there, and then this island somehow gets blighted, maybe through a cascade, maybe through a ravage, then I would lose 1 presence token from that land. This presence token then does not go back to my board, it is completely destroyed and removed from the game. And when the invaders are done ravaging, we move this to the discard pile, and we move on to the invaders build. Invaders in this case are going to build in the jungle areas, and in this case they're going to build in both. They wouldn't, by the way, build if the land was currently empty. So that's something you can maybe consider when you're deciding your fast powers, is if there's a way of emptying a land before they build in it, then that's a really good idea. What they're going to build is they will usually build a town, but in the case where there are more towns than there are cities, then they would build a city. Then after building, this card gets shuffled along, and this is the area they're going to ravage in the next round. After that, it's explore time. In this case, they're going to explore in the mountains, which means that we place an explorer in the mountain areas. And this card then moves over, and they're going to build their next turn. This, by the way, is quite a logical sequence. They explore in an area, then they build things there, and then they start ravaging. I'll just explain briefly as well about explore, that they actually only reach the areas if it's adjacent to either the ocean or a territory that already has a town or a city. So let's say these weren't here. Let's say we'd been able to destroy them previously, and then we get the card saying that they're going to explore the mountain areas. Well, they would get here by coming from the ocean, but they currently don't have a way of reaching this mountain area because it isn't adjacent to a town or a city or an ocean. So this guy wouldn't actually go there, and we've basically saved ourselves a lot of bother. That's a huge advantage when you're playing the game in basically tidying up the map a little bit and making sure that you don't have villages and towns towards the edge of the map. You want to kind of move stuff that way if possible. And then we've almost reached the end of the round. The good news is, though, what's left is the slow power phase, so this is something that's good for the invaders. Do you remember way back in the beginning of the round where we decided which cards we wanted to play? And then after that, in the fast power phase, we played the ones with the red bird symbol. Well, now it's time to play the other cards that you've selected that have the blue turtle symbol. Is it a turtle? Is it a tortoise? I'm not entirely sure. The blue slow symbol, anyway. This phase, it's relatively straightforward in the sense that you simply play the cards that you've selected. But what I find not straightforward, at least when you're learning the game, is that this phase, you selected the cards before the invaders did all their stuff, but you're playing the cards after the invaders did all their stuff. So way back when you were selecting your cards, you have to kind of look at it and think, well, okay, that's a slow power. So if I'm trying to play that to stop the ravage over here or to stop the build over here, well, I'm going to be using that power after they've already done those things. So you want to be sort of thinking a little bit ahead and thinking, well, what do I want to use in the slow phase when the invaders have already done their things? That's one of the things that's quite sort of exciting about Spirit Island, but also it can take a little bit of time to sort of get your head around that way of thinking. And before moving on to the next round and restarting with the Spirit phase, time is going to pass. And as time passes, injured Dahan heal themselves, but also injured buildings heal themselves as well. So if you're going to do damage to a city or a village, you better make sure you kill it, or else it will just come back full health next round. A few other things that I haven't mentioned yet. Firstly, if you were to have 2 presents in the same territory, then this territory is considered a sacred site. And these are denoted by the little symbol there of 2 presence tokens on top of each other. Basically, that's important for some of the cards that have a range denoting from a sacred site rather than simply from somewhere where you have some presence. Also, on each spirit there are some special rules written down here in the corner. In this case for river, then each presence in wetlands counts as a sacred site. So this one here that I actually start with would count as a sacred site, even though there's only one presence in there at the moment. The other thing that I haven't actually mentioned is what's written down here, the innate powers. Each spirit has its own unique innate powers, and basically these are further ways of attacking the invaders without having to use any energy and without having to spend additional cards. On the cards, you'll notice on the side there are these are called elements. You'll notice here like the yellow ones are marked on these 3 cards but not on this one. The blue one is marked on all of them, and yeah, you got the red, the green, the grey over there. Basically, when you're deciding which cards to play, in this case I got 2 yellow, 2 blue and a red. So I fulfill the requirement of the first one here, having 1 yellow and 2 blue. This means then, in the slow power phase, I can push 1 explorer or town at a range of 1 from a sacred site in any target land. Were I to have played more cards than this, I could be in a position where I satisfy the second requirement here, where instead I would get to do 2 damage and then push up to 3 of the explorers or towns. And equally, if I satisfy the requirements for the last line, then I can do a lot more damage. This is something that you may want to think about when you're selecting which cards to play, because basically if you can get the elements to match up with the requirements for your innate power, you basically get another weapon for attacking the invaders. The other thing that I haven't actually explicitly mentioned, although I've touched upon it a few times here and there, is something I usually mention very early on in my videos, and that is, of course, how do you win, or how do you lose? There are 3 ways in which you can lose. One is that you run out of blight over here. Basically then the island is considered too damaged to continue with, and you've lost the game. If this deck here is ever empty and you need to take another explorer card, then you've also lost. Basically you run out of time and the explorers have settled into the island nicely. You would also lose if at any point you don't have any more presence left on the board. But you don't have to lose, you can also win. Again, the victory condition is given over here, so in the beginning it's by destroying all of the invaders basically, and then as you gain more fear, it becomes slightly easier, and then you would also win if this guy here is ever visible. So that's how you win. And it is as simple as that. When you're comfortable with these rules, there are loads and loads of ways of leveling up this game, which is one of the things that I really like about it. Once you get comfortable, once you get familiar with the way of thinking, you can then start playing with blight cards. There's also adversaries and scenarios, and there are more complicated spirits that you can play with, and the way that you approach playing with one spirit is very different from how you approach playing with another one. There's a lot of replayability and a lot of depth in this game, which is really exciting when you're learning how to play. For those of you who are more visual learners, I'm going to be doing a video probably next week, basically showing a gameplay of this. I'm going to be doing a playthrough. I'm going to be playing as River on a solo player mode, on a solo player board, and yeah, then you'll see all of these rules in action, and you'll get more of an understanding of the flow of the game. So yeah, subscribe so that you don't miss that one. I'm also thinking of doing another video where I basically talk about common rules that people misunderstand, because when I've looked online, basically everybody has said that when they started playing this game, there were different rules that they got wrong. So if you're going to be playing this and you get a couple of rules wrong, don't worry about it. Everyone in the world has that problem. And I'm going to be doing a video which will clarify a few of the more common ones at least. But I really hope this video was helpful. Yes, it is a deep strategic game. It is relatively complicated, but it is also great fun. And if you can get over that barrier of understanding, basically, then there is a lot of fun to be had in Spirit Island. But yeah, In the meantime, take care. I'll see you in the next video. Take care, goodbye, and long live the Dahan. Goodbye.